Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Star Flames, and we're back baby with another banging video. In this video guys, we're gonna talk about Sean Diddy Combs' legal team. They have filed a vigorous opposition tonight, and they are opposing the removal of juror number 6, one of 2 black men on the jury. Now, what they're saying to the court is that there's no grounds for this juror dismissal, and the court did not give this juror, the proper, let's say, opportunity to explain what happened in court, why they were nodding, and all of that. All the reasons why the court argue this individual's dismissal. And Diddy's legal team is saying the court is not even proving anything that this juror did wrong. And there was no course of action taken to say, okay, let me remind you of your responsibilities as a juror. Now, what Diddy's legal team is also arguing is that the court is charging Sean Diddy Combs for sex trafficking, and these things that came out during the testimony, it is showing that these women may have been willing participants. While the prosecutor is arguing coercion, it still hasn't proven that these women were coerced into doing these things. And they need this trial to be as fair as possible. And they're fearful that if this juror, which is a black man, is removed, and he's replaced by the previous, which is someone from another race, it's going to affect the fairness of the trial. So if the court cannot overlook the facts and give this juror another opportunity, they believe that it's only fair for the case to end in a mistrial. And they go in, honey. They go in, and they go all the way in. Now, it is 14 pages. I'm not sure if I'm going to read all of it. I was going through most of it. But before I get into the details of the filing, I just want to say this really quick because I've seen comments where people said that I've turned on Diddy, and I gasped and I clutched my invisible pearls because I was like, when was I in support of Diddy? I was never a Diddy fan, not even in those days of every step I take, every move I make. I've always loved Diddy's Halloween costumes, and I've given him credit for that. But y'all keep forgetting that I was the girl who did the series Like Roaches, They'll Come Crawling Back that went viral here on YouTube. I was that girl. I was the girl who predicted that Diddy is going to be in trouble and Kanye West is going to be the only one to support him. Do you guys remember when Diddy was telling the world not to support Kanye's White Lives Matter t-shirt? And when Kanye lost his billions and Diddy was trolling him with Kim, and I said, I bet your ass Diddy is going to come back like Roach, crawling and begging to Kanye for help, and Kanye is going to be dumb enough to risk everything and help Diddy. That series is still here on YouTube. I was doing series on Diddy, like predicting all of this before anyone else was doing it. So I'm saying that to say I was never a Sean Diddy Combs supporter. And if you're making reference to, my reaction to those Tony Busby lawsuits, speaking the truth is not defending Diddy. I said that those cases were a mess. They were a distraction. They were laced with fallacies, and more than 80% of them will be thrown out because I don't know how anyone could take majority of those cases seriously. And have I been proven to be correct at the end of the day? Absolutely. They were comical, ridiculous, and you could tell that many of those things never happened. And as such, where are those cases? What happened to those cases? So speaking the truth about anything does not denote me being a supporter of anything besides the truth. I was never a Sean Diddy Combs supporter, not even in the day when Diddy was that icon and legend, because I could always smell that something was wrong with that guy. But anywho, the internet will always have its day with fallacies. Now, let's get into this filing because it's a lengthy one. So his legal team in the filing, they say, "Dear Judge Subramania, the defense submits this letter in further support of its vigorous opposition to striking Juror, a black man," and they have several things, blocked out for privacy of the court. Mr. Combs would be substantially prejudiced by the dismissal of this juror, and because there is no factual basis to remove him under FISIO, the court lacks discretion to do so. However, if the supposed inconsistencies in his answers to the court's question were truly of concern, if the court strikes Juror, we respectfully request that a mistrial be declared. We understand that the court has refused to find any discriminatory motive in the government's action with respect to its peremptory strikes of this motion. However, we respectfully and regrettably disagree. The government's motion must be evaluated in light of the entire history of this investigation and prosecution and not in isolation. Unfortunately, when considered against that background, it is impossible to believe that this motion is merely a good faith attempt to raise a valid question about the juror's integrity rather than an effort to take advantage of an opportunity to strike yet another black male from the jury. Now, it goes on to say, to begin with, as the court noted during the morning session on Friday, it doesn't have discretion to remove a juror where there's a bias in the removal of the juror or where there would be prejudice to the defendant, with prejudice meaning that the discharge is without factual support or for a legally irrelevant reason. They have C-sections that, governs this, and the case that actually governs this motive, along with the case attached to the reason for the juror's removal. So they included all of it, and they say, all of this describe this standard. Here, there would be significant bias and prejudice to the defendant, and there's no factual support for dismissing the juror. First, there is no question Mr. Combs would be severely prejudiced if the juror in question were removed and replaced by the first alternate. We have previously pointed out that this juror is one of only 2 black men on the jury, but it should also be noted that he is the juror who is perhaps most similar to Mr. Combs in other important ways. He is a black man. Moreover, this case involves serious charges of sexual misconduct against women who were in relationship with Mr. Combs. As the opening statements and the witness testimony have revealed, the principal dispute between the parties is whether Cassie Ventura and Jane willingly participated in the sexual activity at issue during their relationships with Mr. Combs for their own reasons and because they choose to do so, or whether, as the government claimed, they were coerced. The fairness of the trial depends in part of having jurors with backgrounds similar to Mr. Combs share their perspectives on the evidence with the other jurors from diverse background during deliberation. Removing this particular juror will deprive Mr. Combs of that important perspective, and it is no answer to simply say that there are other black jurors or other males on the jury. Second, there is no factual support for the government's position or respectfully the court's statement Friday afternoon, which were in stark conflict with the court's apparent recognition Friday morning that the purported inconsistencies were likely completely benign, as we explained at length in our letter on June 12th on this topic. Now, the further states there were no material inconsistencies with respect to anything Juror said voir dire, and in the June 9th colloquies, and the juror's willingness to perform this public service and his civic duty should be considered a positive rather than a negative factor. There is no evidence whatsoever that he had an agenda or a bias in favor of either party, and no legitimate reason to jump to that conclusion. Indeed, the court had an opportunity to assess the juror's demeanor, not only during voir dire, but also at closer proximity in a robing room during the two colloquies on June 9th. Now, they further states the court never suggested at that time or any time before Friday afternoon that it had any reason to doubt that the jurors was doing his best to be forthright and honest with the court during Friday's morning session after having reviewed both parties' submissions, including the government's. Lengthy quotes from the relevant transcripts. See June 11th letter at 2 to 5. The court indicated it was inclined to agree that there was an insufficient basis to find that the juror was being deceitful and intentionally so, as the government charge also. And so the defense submission is really that the answers given the nature of the inquiry, both in jury selection and during the current process, was vague enough so that the answers could easily be reconciled with each other, and the subject matter of what was being addressed is so far afield from the juror's performance of duty that that's not a reason to remove the juror. The real suggestion from the government as to the reason why the juror should be removed is because if you take the inference against the juror's credibility, there is a view that if you can't reconcile the answers and the juror was being deceitful and intentionally so, either in jury selection or in the colloquy, in the robing room, then that would be grounds to disqualify the juror. Now guys, it's a very lengthy one. It goes all the way down to, I think it's 15 pages. They go in and they talk about the CNN video. They talk about the prosecutor continues spying and all of that jazz. So it's like 15 pages. I'm going to include it in case you guys want to read it. If you want to catch it on your own, you can just head on over to Megan Cuniff on Twitter. But I believe that you guys get the gist of it. They have everything included. This is very thorough. So basically they're saying there's absolutely no reason that warrants the removal of juror, and we know the number 6. And they're saying that since 1989, it has been revealed that Black Americans are 7 times more likely than white Americans to be falsely convicted of serious crimes. And that's why it is important to have someone Black on the juror. And if someone Black is not on the juror, then it shows some type of prejudice to the Black man that is on trial. And already the court is convicting Diddy without a fair trial, which is a violation of due legal process. So you can read that. It's a very lengthy one. It has a lot of information, but I believe that you guys get the gist from what I've read about what they're saying. But anywho, guys, it is your time to chime in. Let me know what you take about Sean Diddy Combs' legal team requesting that the juror be reinstated. If not, there should be a mistrial. While you're at it, do all you need to do on this video to support your girl. Peace.